So the sons of Israel, there's that word, that promised name. The name of the promise is at work. So God is guiding all of this. So it's just one of those little hints that we can notice. Verse 6, now Joseph was governor over all the land, and it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke gruffly to them. Then he said to them, where did you come from? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. Then Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and he said to them, you are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land. So the brothers bow down to Joseph. Remember this dream? Mm-hmm. And they were all salty about that? And it says twice that Joseph recognized them, but they didn't recognize him. Because he probably spoke to him in Egyptian, married into the priesthood. He was probably shaved all over, including his eyebrows. You know, somebody, Scotty shaves his beard, we're going to like, who's that guy? You know, there's a weirdness about it when all your hair is gone. And, he probably even walked like an Egyptian. So when his brothers saw him, they said, way-o, way-o, oh, way-o. Never mind. So, but Joseph, why do you think he spoke roughly to them?
I think he still had some resentment.
You think so? That would be my thought too. Because, if it was me, yeah, I'd totally mess with them. I'd make their lives really hard. But there's... Because they didn't recognize him too. So he could play with their minds. Oh yeah, he could really mess them up. And, that's my thought because that's what I would do. Yeah.
I think there's some trepidation because they grabbed him, they threw him in the pit, they sold him. There might be a bit of worry about, if they realize I'm alive now, they might try to cover their tracks again.
Maybe.
I don't know if they're going to see me realize that.
Well, he's pretty much untouchable as Pharaoh's second. Yeah. They'd have to go through the entire Egyptian army to get to him. So, if it was me, I'd be messing with him because that's how I'm wired. But there's nothing in the text that would indicate Joseph is that kind of a person. His character throughout all of this, whether he's in Potiphar's house, whether he's been accused of rape, whether he's in jail, everything, he's focused on the Lord. Yeah, he doesn't complain, he doesn't whine, he just goes to work. So when these guys show up, I've started to come to the conclusion he's not messing with them. He's got a purpose in what he's doing. Yeah.
I do investigations and interviews all the time. I'm not allowed to lie to anybody, but I can make them think anything I want to make them think.
Yeah.
By telling the truth. And he may just be getting them on guard because he wants a truthful answer. He wants to hear what he doesn't want them playing games with him and trick him. And so he's trying to set them up to be as honest as they can be.
Yeah. He's in the place to keep them off guard. And when it says the sons of Israel went down to Egypt, God is doing something here. And what can God do? He can reconcile this family because it's messed up. So if the Spirit of God is in Joseph, the Spirit of God has the purpose here. And how Joseph speaks, how Joseph acts is guided by the Spirit of God. And so Joseph blesses everybody he comes into contact with. And yet here, he's acting different for these men. So something's going on in the background. God has a purpose in this. And he says, you've come to see the nakedness of the land. Well, they ripped off his coat. They pretty much saw his nakedness when they sold him into slavery. So he's kind of throwing it in their face. You're going to come see the nakedness of the land? No, you're spies. So let's see how they respond. And they said to him, no, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies. But he said to them, no, you have come to see the nakedness of the land. And they said, your servants are 12 brothers, the son of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more. But Joseph said to them, it is I speak to you, saying, you are spies. In this manner you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place unless your younger brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be tested to see whether there is any truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. So he put them all together in prison for 3 days. We're honest men, not spies. At least half of that is true. So they're not completely liars. But Joseph gets it out of him that there's 12 brothers. One is at home and one is no more. That's a weird way to speak of the missing one, right? He's not dead, he's just no more. And you can do a search throughout the Bible for the Hebrew word no more, or is not is the literal Hebrew. One brother isn't dead, he just is not. And, Enoch walked with God and then he is not because he went home to God. So it's kind of like this limbo. He's not dead. We don't know where he's at. He just is not. So it's like they don't want to admit to themselves that they could have killed him. So they've got some issues. But since Joseph and Benjamin were Dad's favorite, born of Rachel, he probably wants to find out if these guys have harmed his brother. If they were willing to do that to Joseph, Benjamin's the only one left, so what did you guys do to him? And he seems to focus in on Benjamin. And Joseph also remembers his dreams, so God reminds him, and God is working all of this back to restoration, because you all know the story. They eventually come back together as a family. But Joseph makes a test. He plans to send one of them home and bring back Benjamin. And he swears by Pharaoh, which is as high as you could get. And Benjamin needs to come to him. So the original plan was to send one of them back, bring Benjamin. So the problem, from what you know about these 12 sons, who would you send?
Reuben.
Well, Reuben was the firstborn. He has some authority, but he also accidentally sort of kind of slept with Bilhah, his dad's concubine. So I'm pretty sure Jacob didn't look kindly on that. He's going to bring it up in a couple of chapters. So Reuben, I don't know, maybe 50-50. He is firstborn, so that means something. But, there's that other stuff. How about Simeon and Levi, the two gangsters that killed an entire city? Those guys? Do you think Jacob would be swayed by those? How about Judah? We read about him and Tamar. So who would you send? The other brothers, we don't know much about them. You got Naphtali, Asher, and all the other ones, but there's nothing in this, in any of the narrative that indicates any of these guys were had any character. The only one was Joseph. If Joseph had went back and told Dad, Dad would believe him. But Joseph's not available to do that. So who do you send if you're going to send one of them? And, after Simeon and Levi killed that entire city, the rest of the brothers went and looted it. So it kind of tells you about them. So who do you send back? So Joseph knows he has a problem here. Then Joseph said to them the third day, "Do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house, but you go and carry grain for the famine of your houses, and bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words will be verified, and you shall not die." And they did so. Then they said to one another, "We are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and he would not hear. Therefore this distress has come upon us." And Reuben answered them, saying, Did I not speak to you, saying, "Do not sin against the boy"? And you would not listen? Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us. But they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. And he turned himself away from them and wept. Then he returned to them and talked with them, and he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. So this is a place where we find out that Joseph wasn't quiet when they threw him in the pit. When we read that narrative, he said nothing in his defense, just like Jesus did. But here they recognize that, he was crying out while he was in the pit, but we didn't pay attention because, we were eating lunch. That's kind of important. So, and Reuben, of course, comes along, "You idiots, I told you not to mess with him." But no, you didn't listen. So, it's so it's been 22 years since this event happened, and now something bad happens to them, and that's the first thing they think of. You think they feel guilty about it? It's the first thing they think of. So it's kind of God is using all of these events to work on this family. But why Simeon? I don't know. There's Jewish legends that say it was Simeon who bound Joseph to sell him, but those are legends, and I don't know what it's based on because there's nothing in the scripture to indicate why. But, you check different commentaries, and they'll all have different theories. Maybe one time when Joseph was a kid, Simeon took his toy out of his Happy Meal. I don't know. We don't know. But personally, I think he had to send Reuben back because, he was the firstborn. But, maybe the secondborn, not as important. But you've got these other brothers that maybe can sway Dad to get him to bring Benjamin back. And since Simeon was older than Levi, it might be him that instigated the violence at Shechem. So maybe he's the most violent one. They killed an entire city of guys. So that makes sense to me. And Joseph binds them before their eyes. Just as they watched the slavers take away Joseph, they're watching him take away Simeon. So, any thoughts? Additional thoughts?
My thought on him having the trust to send Reuben back, of all the brothers, I would think that Joseph would have the most trust in Reuben to send back because Reuben was the one who was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be doing this to him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Judah, at least, instead of killing him, let's just sell him off, So they both kind of protecting Joseph, but because apparently the other brothers wanted to kill him. So, but yeah, Reuben, for all of his faults, he's still firstborn, so maybe he can sway Dad. I don't know. So, but yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay, well, let's keep going then. Then Joseph gave the command to fill their sacks with grain and to restore every man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. Thus he did for them. So they loaded their donkeys with grain, and they departed from there. But as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey feed at the encampment, he saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of the sack. So he said to his brothers, my money has been restored, and there it is in my sack. Then their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying to one another, what is this that God has done to us? Oh. Who did it? Well, they said, God has done this to us. Now they're looking towards God. The guy from Egypt, he's not messing with this. This is God's doing. So, you think they're guilty before God? Yeah. And, the deceptive heart would hide it. The lying heart would make up a story about it. The proud heart would think it was deserved it. The superficial heart would think nothing of it. And these guys are worried. So maybe they are honest men at this point.
Fear God.
Yeah. Yeah. When everything's dying around you from famine and your only escape is this guy in Egypt. Yeah. That gets their attention. Then they went to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan and told him all that had happened to them, saying, the man who is the Lord of the land spoke roughly to us, and they took us for spies of the country. But we said to them, we are honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father, one is no more, and the youngest is with our father this day in the land of Canaan. Then the man, by the Lord of the country, said to us, by this I will know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take food for the famine in your household, and be gone. Then bring your youngest brother to me, so that I'll know that you are not spies, but that you are honest men. I will grant your brother to you, and you may trade in the land. Then it happened, as they encamped and emptied their sacks, that surprisingly each man's bundle of money was in his sack. Then they and their father saw the bundles of money, and they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, you have bereaved me. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and you want to take Benjamin? All these things are against me. Jacob seems to say that a lot. I can't catch a break. Dude. He's an interesting character. But the brothers tell the truth this time. They lied about Joseph disappearing, and they're forced to tell the truth about Simeon. They have no other choice. So Joseph disappears, and 20 silver show up. Simeon disappears, and all this money shows up. Do you think the heel catcher trusts these guys? Well, I wouldn't. Joseph is not, and now Simeon is not. And all these things are against me. The heel catcher, sneaky weasel, thief, jerkface says all this stuff is working against me. And yet Joseph with everything he's went through, God's with me. So there's a huge contrast between Jacob and Joseph. But Jacob, I mean, he's healthy, he's very wealthy, and everything's against him. He just needs to look up. So now, this is basically the working out of Romans 8:28. All things work together for those that are called according to his purpose. Because all this stuff that's against Jacob is to get this family, saved from famine, but it's also to get them reconciled. And David Guzak writes this chart. If Joseph's family wasn't messed up and weird, his brothers would have sold him as a slave. If Joseph's brothers never sold him as a slave, Joseph never would have gone to Egypt. If Joseph never went to Egypt, he would never have been sold to Potiphar. If Joseph wasn't sold to Potiphar, Potiphar's wife would never have falsely accused him of rape. If Potiphar's wife never falsely accused Joseph of rape, Joseph never would have been put in prison. If Joseph never put in prison, he never would have met the baker and the butler of Pharaoh. If Joseph never met the baker and butler of Pharaoh, he never would have interpreted their dreams. If Joseph never interpreted their dreams, he never would have interpreted Pharaoh's dream. If Joseph never interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, he never would have been prime minister, second in Egypt only to Pharaoh. If Joseph never became prime minister, he never would have wisely prepared for the terrible famine to come. And if Joseph had never prepared for the terrible famine, his family back in Canaan would have died in the famine. If Joseph's family back in Canaan had died in the famine, then the Messiah could not have come from a dead family. If the Messiah did not come forth, then Jesus never came. If Jesus never came, then we're all dead in our sins and without hope in this world. So all of this stuff, God is lining up for a purpose, including 700 years before with Pharaoh Dozier and the famine Stella that we looked at last week. So everything is working according to his purpose. And Jacob's, everything's against me. Dude. So, verse 37, then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you, and put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you. But Jacob said, my son will not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity shall befall him along the way which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. So Reuben steps up. You can kill my sons if I don't bring him back. Gee, thanks, Dad. Man. So talk about a messed up family. But notice that Jacob talks as if he only has 1 son left. Man, how do you think that makes the other 10 feel? This is a messed up family. So it sounds to me that Jacob is still wrestling with God. He's not quite made it to Israel yet. He's still wrestling. Everything God does, it's against me. Chapter 43, now the famine was severe in the land, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, go back, buy us a little food. But Judah spoke to him, saying, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you do not send him, we will not go down, for the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. And Israel said, why do you deal so wrongfully with me, as to tell me, the man, whether you still had another brother? But they said, the man asked us pointedly about ourselves and our family, saying, is your father still alive? Have you another brother? And we told him according to these words, could we possibly have known that he would say, bring your brother down? Then Judah said to Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I myself will be a surety for him. For my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not lingered, surely by now we could have returned this second time. So the brothers went down during the first year of the famine, and now it's into the second year, and things are getting bad. And we see Judah step up as leader. So we've seen him with Tamar, we've seen him sell Joseph, but here he's offering his life in exchange for his brother. This is different. And it's like God saying, this is the type of man I can use. Why did Jesus come from the tribe of Judah? I think it's because of this. You know, if I would have chosen one, it would have been from the tribe of Joseph, but it's not my choice. So God is working something here. We see the name Israel show up. There's a promise in here somewhere, and God is working it. So what do you guys think?
I think because, the Bible says that something good comes out of that. So I think this is what it's talking about.
Yeah.
All things that happen, still the Messiah comes up.
Yeah.
It was like you said, you said if it comes to the prophet Joseph, and it didn't. But something good came out of something bad.
Yeah, if you were the Satan, I mean, who would you choose to persecute? The only one that's really godly is Joseph. So, it could be that Satan was behind a lot of this stuff, and he's focused on Joseph, and meanwhile, here comes Judah from the side. A little different. It's God's purpose, not, the Satan can't oppose that. So, it's interesting that all of a sudden Judah steps into the light. So, and he says, look, we've been talking about this so long, we could have been back already. Just let us go. So, So, Jacob, he kind of wants, he's still being Jacob. He wants to smooth the way a little bit, and they put together a care package for the man. And hopefully you can bring back Benjamin, if we give him some good stuff. And then in verse 15, so the men took that present, and Benjamin, and they took double the money in their hand, and arose and went down to Egypt. And they stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with him, he said to the steward of his house, take these men to my home, and slaughter an animal, and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon. Then the man did as Joseph ordered, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, it is because of the money, which we returned in our sacks the first time that we were brought in, so that he may make a case against us and seize us, to take us as slaves with our donkeys. So these guys take double the money. There were 10 brothers the first time. They doubled that. Now it's 20 times the money. They sold Joseph for 20 silver. So there's a lot of echoes here. But when they drew near to the steward of Joseph's house, they talked with him at the door of the house, saying, "O sir, indeed we came down the first time to buy food, but it happened when we came to the encampment that we opened our sacks, and there in each man's money was in the mouth of the sack, our money in full weight. So we have brought it back to in our hand, and we have brought down other money in our hands to buy food. We do not know who put the money in our sacks." But the man said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." And then he brought Simeon out to them. So this steward was the one that put the money back in their sacks, but he gives credit to God. It was on Joseph's command. So Joseph was working on the command of God to get their money back. And he brings Simeon out. So Simeon's probably in jail wondering, am I ever going to get out? I mean, if it's up to my brothers, I might as well make myself comfortable. But he finally brings him out. Everybody's happy. And when Joseph came home, verse 26, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house and bowed down before him to the earth. Then he asked them about their well-being and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" So he sees Benjamin's alive. What about dad? Joseph still loves his dad. And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads down and prostrated themselves. So twice they've bowed down to Joseph. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Now his heart yearned for his brother, so Joseph made haste, sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face, came out, he restrained himself and said, "Serve the bread." So they set him a place by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews. For that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. Then the men looked in astonishment at one another. Then he took servings to them from before them, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they drank and were merry with him. So Joseph is still trying to make sure these guys aren't trying to scam, trying to be Jacob, basically. And he sits them by birth order. These guys are in their 40s. There's nothing really to distinguish them. So the chances of that are astronomical. And yet he tells them exactly where to sit. And they looked at astonishment in each other.
How does he know this?
Yeah, this guy's got some power to him. You know, he must be some sort of mystic, or God must be on his side or something. You know, this is, they can't believe that. But he sits him by birth order and gives Benjamin 5 times as much. Are they going to be jealous of Benjamin? You know, that'd be the test. You know, are they going to say, hey, how come he got so much? Are they still the same kids he grew up with? No, they just start eating and drinking, and they're merry and happy. Everything's fine. They totally ignore that Benjamin has that much food. So they've changed. Now, the Egyptians would not eat with the people from Canaan, so they wouldn't eat with Joseph. Joseph sat by himself, and the brothers with themselves, and the Egyptians sat off by themselves. Joseph wasn't a real Egyptian. He was second in command, but he was still alone. And he's still faithful to God, still faithful to Pharaoh. So Joseph is a really interesting character. So the brothers are set up to return to Canaan with Benjamin. And when they head out, you know, they try to explain to Joseph, look, you know, last time we left, there was money in our sacks. We don't know how it got there. You know, we want to bring it back and pay for this food. And Joseph says, no problem. Don't worry about it. And let's see, where am I at? Yeah, we'll go to 44. So they head out, and Joseph has one more test. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the man's sack with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack, and also my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his grain money. So he did according to the word that Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning dawned, the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. When they had gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said to his steward, get up, follow the men. And when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and with which he indeed practices divination? You have done evil in so doing. So he overtook them, and he spoke to them these same words. And they said to him, why does my Lord say these words? Far be it from us that your servants should do such a thing. Look, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money which we found in the mouth of our sacks. How then could we steal silver and gold from your Lord's house? With whomever your servants it is found, let him die, and we will be my Lord's slaves. So these brothers are confident that not one of them stole. This is, you know, go ahead and kill the one who stole anything. They're that confident. So these brothers have changed. You know, maybe they are actually honest. And he said, now, let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my slave, and you shall be blameless. Then each man speedily let down his sack to the ground, and each opened his sack. So he searched. He began with the oldest, and left off with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes, and each man loaded his donkey, and returned to the city. So Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there. And they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, what deed is this you have done? Did you not know that such a man as I can certainly practice divination? Then Judah said, what shall we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants. Here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and he, also with whom the cup was found. But he said, far be it from me that I should do so. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he shall be my slave. And as for you, go up in peace to your father. So the silver cup. So a cup by which you drink wine, found in a grain sack by which you make bread. Just another little tidbit there. But once again, God is working through Joseph to move this family to reconciliation. He's working this thing. The silver cup, the Hebrew is cup or bowl. It's kind of like a big thing by which you would fill smaller cups. And, you know, we'd probably say jug. You know, this is my favorite, my silver jug. But you can do a search for the word cup throughout the Bible, and you'll find some interesting things. You know, Psalm 23, my cup runs over. You know, it's a cup of blessing that God can give us. Psalm 116, the cup of salvation that God gives us, a cup of blessing. But on the other hand, you've also got cups of wrath. Psalm 75, the cup is poured out on the wicked, God's wrath. Isaiah 51, the cup of God's fury and the cup of trembling. Ezekiel 23, the cup of horror and desolation. In Zechariah 12, Israel will become a cup of drunkenness. a cup of trembling. Basically, the entire world is looking at Israel trying to figure out what to do with them. And Israel's just sitting there like a drunk man. And in Revelation, we see the bowl judgments, which are kind of the same thing. God's wrath poured out on the earth. God's full wrath. But what did Jesus say in the garden? What about the cup? Remember? What's that? Yeah, let this cup pass from me. And, which cup? It's the cup of God's wrath. Jesus drank from that cup. God's entire wrath poured upon Jesus, by which we might live and get the cup of blessing. So you can do a word study on cups if you want to. And Jesus drank from the cup of God's wrath. And we remember that every time we take communion with the cup. And in the same way, this cup is being set up as do you think it's a cup of blessing or a cup of wrath? What do you think these guys think? The wrath is coming. So how do you stop that? So however it got in Benjamin's sack, wrath is coming. They know they're in trouble. And then Judah. Okay. Judah steps up, and verse 30, he says, "Now therefore, when I come to your servant, my father, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bound up in the lad's life, it will happen, when he sees the lad is not with us, that he will die. So your servants will bring down on the gray hair of your servant, our father, with sorrow to the grave. For your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father forever. Now therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my lord, and let the lad go up to his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with me? Lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father." Judah steps up. "I'll take Benjamin's place. I'll stay here as a slave for you. I'll work for you. Just let him go." This is the kind of guy I can use. This is the kind of guy that Jesus is. He'll take our place. So right here, this is different from everything else we've known about these brothers. It's different. But then Joseph could not restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, "Make everyone go out away from me." So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. That's a pretty loud cry. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Does my father still live?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. This guy speaking Egyptian all this time, shaved, looking like an Egyptian. That's Joseph? Uh-oh. Oh man, now we're in trouble. So he says, "Please come near to me." So they came near, and then he says, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity for you in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord over his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt." So Joseph, he never says all is against me. No, this is God. He put me here, so I'm going to go to work. God put me here. I'm going to go to work. That's Joseph, man. He's a powerful figure. So, but it wasn't until Joseph actually kisses his brothers that they're able to speak. You sold this kid into slavery and you thought he was dead, and all of a sudden he's standing here. Yeah, that'd be pretty rough. But hurry, go up to my father and say to him, "Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord over all Egypt. Come down to me and do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near to me, and you and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, for there are still 5 years of famine." So he went to prepare a place for them. So then he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept. Verse 14, and Benjamin wept on his neck. Moreover, he kissed all of his brothers and wept over them, and after this, his brothers talked to him. So they were kind of speechless, and Pharaoh hears about this. Oh, your brothers are here. He gives them carts to go and get their family, bring them back, and we'll protect them. Just go get your family. So this kind of tells us how much Pharaoh really appreciated Joseph, how much he respected Joseph. This is a big deal. So you're going to send, the Egyptian carts and horses and everything to go get this family. And he says, Pharaoh says, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. And so Joseph, the sons of Israel did so, verse 21, and Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. So once again, the younger is blessed over the elders. It's the same pattern throughout the entire Bible. And now they're going to head home and go to Joseph. Who's going to tell Dad? What do you tell him? Joseph, we thought he was killed by animals. He's in Egypt. How'd he get there? Oops, now you're going to have a couple of weeks to think about it on the way home. You got to figure out what to tell Dad. This is going to be rough. So go home and tell Dad. Then they went up, verse 25, then they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob their father. And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive. He is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart stood still, because he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words which Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. Then Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is alive. I will go and see him before I die. Jacob didn't believe. Israel says, let's go see my son. So even Jacob is moving to where he needs to be. So this is kind of a fascinating story. We'll pause it here, and we'll see Jacob's journey to Egypt next week. Any thoughts? Addendums? Criticisms? Footnotes? But yeah, what would you tell Dad?
The beast carried him all the way to
Yeah,
Egypt.
I don't know. Somewhere along the line, they found him and took him to Egypt, and now he's second in command. I don't know. That's Judah. So.
They all know that's not
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jacob, he's got a postgraduate degree in sneakiness, so he probably sees through a lot of this stuff. He's like, oh, now you're telling me the truth. Okay. So, let's go ahead and pray. And Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the example of Joseph and Judah. We just pray, Lord, that, instead of whining and complaining that all is against us, that we might look to you, the author and finisher of our faith. We just pray, Lord, that you'll guide us in our walk and help us, Lord, to be reconciled to those we need to be reconciled with. We just ask blessing on the service today, and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.